Hey, everybody, it's Radleigh, and you're listening to the Radleigh Valentine Show here on mindbodyspirit.fm, the best little spiritual podcaster in the world. So, I am starting a new series for the months of January and February, and I am calling it The Next Wave. So, what we've got going on here is the next wave of spiritual teachers, gifted folk, those who have the opportunity to help you to make your life better, people that I've bumped into that I think really should be noticed. And this is going to give you an opportunity to get to know them, for them to get to know you, and for you to see what might be coming around the corner. Now, our topic today, I am calling the art of spirituality, because both of these fine folk that we have joining us today are amazing artists. And it is something that is incorporated into their spiritual teachings and their ability to help coach you or help advise you to be able to make the changes in your life that could really help you to feel like you are living the life of joy that you deserve to be living. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on these two crazy little folk. Their names are John Mothershead and Deborah Rahalski. So, hi, John. Hi, Deborah. How
Hey,
you guys doing?
Hi.
great. Thanks for having us.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely
thank
thrilled to
you.
have you
It's
guys.
exciting.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So, you guys are both artists in your own right. So,
Mhm.
who wants? Let's just start with John. John, how did you get from whatever you've been doing with your life to what you're doing with your life right now? What was that transition, and how was art involved in that?
Sure. I was obsessed with this
Oh,
deck a long time ago,
John is
and
holding up Angel Tarot
this was my
cards.
introduction to angels, and oddly that opened up just this giant can of worms to explore angels and to like dive into the world of spirituality. So I started working with a shaman who did this beautiful intuitive angel art, and
Oh,
I was
cool.
obsessed with it. She would do these interpretive readings and give these incredible messages through her art. She opened up a certification class and trained me, and before you know it, I was making these little intuitive um angel Rorschach paintings that I could then read for my clients. So really that's how I started with the intuitive art. And through your mentorship and through the guidance of Deborah and other friends who really encouraged me to kind of take the leap of faith and go out there and start kind of doing this on a more public scale, I was able to take this little like party trick that I was doing just for family and friends and blow it up. And it's been a wild ride, but a lot of fun.
I'm just going to mess with your own words for just a second. Hardly a parlor trick. As what John does, he's being humble. What John does is that while he is working with you, generally through doing a reading, he is painting at the same. He's doing it simultaneously. He called them Rorschach paintings. They do have that sort of image to them. But they're not black and white. They're full of color. The color he interprets into being a part of the reading, as well as being relatable to particular angels that are working with you. I remember the very first time I saw John do something, and it absolutely knocked my socks off. So he's being very humble when he says that. And so I'm going to go back to him now, and we're going to try that again and just go, why don't you tell people in a more detailed way when you start to paint? What is happening? What is the energy there? What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? How do you know to reach for copper versus turquoise? What's happening exactly?
So, like so many of us, I overthink everything and I'm often very stuck in my ego mind. So, something magical happens when I start just grabbing for the paints and I'm able to break down that barrier and really just connect with the client. So, I don't I can't put words to what really is happening other than the fact that it's all just happening intuitively. Something about squeezing the paint and getting messy is opening my channel, and it's breaking down the barrier between me and the client. And it's a strange connection that I can't really explain, because I'm opening up, but also the client is opening up as the paint is kind of unfolding. And it just invites us both to embrace the color and the message that's being revealed. And yeah, it's that key that's kind of like unlocking the door. And then from there, I definitely take a practical approach. I give prescriptive readings, not predictive readings, much like Deborah. So it's really about figuring out what actionable steps the client can take to move forward in addressing their hopes and dreams and accomplishing their goals.
When I am speaking on stage, and you guys know this about me, when I'm speaking on stage, I don't have notes. It's like if I have notes, it's just so I don't go off on such a far tangent that I can't get back. So, but for the most part, I'm in neutral. It's like my little gear shift is in neutral, and my car still moves. It just is that feel sort of what's like what's happening with you. You're just sort of in neutral.
Oh yes, yeah, I'd say a prayer to Archangel Gabriel, and
Perfect. Makes sense.
I just go into neutral, and on a hope and a prayer, it's just like the angels are taking over from there.
So John is choosing to John is working with Archangel Gabriel because she's the archangel of creativity and communication and also motivation. As a perfect triad for the work that he's doing. So do you have a sense, do you feel like grab green or grab blue, or does your hand just reach over and touch something and you hadn't even thought about it? Or how does that even happen?
Well, a fabulous teacher of mine has this motto of blah.
Oh,
Um, that teacher is
okay.
you. So I kind of like, just like you tell us to blah with our words and to just say what comes to mind and not to overthink it. I do the same with the colors. I'm just grabbing the colors and occasionally if I find my ego like kind of like wanting to grab pink or wanting to grab green, then I just let go, I take a breath, I reset, and I then intuitively grab the next color, because I don't
So
want my ego to get in the way of the message that's supposed to be delivered.
okay. So a dear friend of mine and someone that I know you two work with too is Dougal Fraser, and Dougal Fraser is known for working with color. Dougal, as I understand his experience over the years, for him, it hasn't been, oh, red means this in the chakra system, or blue means this in any other kind of system. It's over the years he has come to understand that when he is working with red, certain truths become evident. That red always seems to show up for this, or blue always seems to show up for that. Is it the same for you? Have you learned what the colors mean? Or did you tell the angels, look, I'm using your colors. So you send me blue, I'm going with Michael and Michael topics. How did that work for you?
So when I first started, it was very clinical. So I definitely used the chakra colors, and I just stuck with those meanings and didn't really stray from that. But when I studied with you and Dougal in Angels and Auras, it really invited us to create our own color language and to connect with the colors more deeply. And that's when I truly feel that like my talent was like unlocked, or and it took me to that next level, because previously it was just clinically reading the colors, and that class invited me to trust my intuition and to use my intuitive talents, which I really didn't believe in until then. So yeah, I would say that the color definition and the relationship with the color is ever evolving. And it just grows deeper and deeper the more people that I work with and the more paintings that I do.
So you're listening to the Radleigh Valentine Show, and I've got two amazing artists on with me today. Their names are John Mothershead and Deborah Rahalski. These are both people who have taken art and blended it with spirituality, um, life coaching, doing readings for people, helping people to transform their lives. So, Deborah, I actually have a piece of your work in my house. I do. So it's like, how is art? I think art has been a part of your life for a long time, but how did it start to really become a spiritual thing, or has it always been a spiritual thing?
Well, it's interesting because part of it becoming the part of the spiritual aspect was me getting past the, 10-year-old kid who was told, you can't be an artist, and there were other kids in art class who were way more talented than me. I just loved art. I loved messing around with things, like doing things, and then telling my parents, think I want to go to art school. And they're like, no, 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 you can't do that. So finding a way to like go into like film, I picked a visually artistic area. I went into film and electronic media, visual editing, visual creativity that way. But it was coming back to embracing art. When we had our daughters, I needed something to get me out of the house. I said to my husband, I'm going to take this art class at this like local community center once a week and just go and paint again. And then um it was interesting because during the pandemic, I dragged out all those paints and started painting just to keep my sanity, as just something
Yeah.
to just kind of it. So there was that expression, that sense of creativity and energy. And I had always been kind of more of not so much trying to not I'm not trying to be like Rembrandt and do a realistic portrait. It was all sort of more like impressionistic, is or abstract art is kind of more my thing. But by the time I connected with John through and it was through your work, the work that we had done together with you and Dougal, where it was this concept of, and by that time also in my teens, I discovered tarot and oracle cards and also astrology. So that undercurrent is there in terms of working with energies and understanding how the cosmos works. Um, and speaking those, working with those divine languages. But by the time I connected with John, we had been going through this experience of connecting with angels through, especially with you. And that validated my angel experiences as a child. Like the angel that spoke to me from the stained glass windows in church was real, really talking to me. Hi, Raziel. Thank you. Um, and it was this kind of coming together of things starting to integrate. Oh, this is here and this is here, and slowly but surely everything started to come together, which is kind of how I create those energy discs that you have one of. So by the time I connected with John at Angels and Auras, we have this, okay, blue is connected, a certain color of blue is connected with Archangel Michael, and a different shade of blue is connected with Raguel. And I'm like, okay, I'll take that. And understanding the energy of the angels, how the angels feel. I see Ariel in a different color. Ariel comes to me. She's the to me, she comes in the colors of autumn. The
Really?
yeah, those amber yellows and a lot of orange. It's like when you and Dougal like, we don't have an angel for orange. I go, I do. That's how Ariel shows up for me. Everything pink is Jophiel. Every shade of pink is Jophiel, and everything.
Uh-huh.
And I remember thinking, and I remember one time you're saying, the angels can be any color. And I'm like, oh, good. One of these days I'll have to tell Radley that.
I think
But
that's wonderful. I love hearing that.
it was connecting with the feeling. It's the energy, it's the feeling. It's this angel feels like this color feels like this. Oh, this makes sense. And then getting to watch John work, because I made him do it live for me. I'm like, no, 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 I'm not signing up for an email reading. We have to do this live. Let's do this live. Was fascinating. And I remember thinking, gosh, I wish I'd thought of that. That's really cool process. And I said that I remember this, buddy. When I said that to him, he goes, oh, well, I don't own this. You can do this. And I go, no, 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 this is definitely your thing. I'll find my own way of working with the energy. And what happened is that I began to realize that the way in which I was working with angels and color, the angels and art, was also similar to the way that I've always worked with astrology. When I first started studying astrology in my teens, it wasn't like I had to learn it. I did not have to memorize the planets and the signs and the houses and what they meant. I knew it. It was like remembering a language. So at that point, it was like going deeper and finding teachers and bodies of work that had a deeper level with astrology. And for me, the work with the astrology has always been about prescriptive. It's been about potential. It's not about prediction. Yes, certain things are more likely to happen when a certain poor, much aligned, malaligned planet goes retrograde. Even though usually when Mercury's retrograde, it's not the only one. And it's like, dude, it's not only my problem. Jupiter and Mars are also retrograde.
Oh God, I hate
But it
Mars
was,
retrograde.
yeah, well, it's retrograde in Leo, which is my rising sign, and I have 5 planets in Leo, so I'm dealing with that.
Yeah.
But I would look at a chart and I kind of just have this sense, and then I'd sit down and I'd spend hours preparing a chart, and then I'd sit down to do a reading for somebody, and it'd just be sitting there and blah. I would just start talking. And I'm like, why am I telling them this? And then I would look at the chart and go, oh, because this Mars is trying Jupiter, or this is that the validation was in the chart, but it was all coming in from somewhere. The same way in which I work with the cards. And with cards, certain things would jump out at me. Oh, look at this bird. Oh, well, this bird in birding, this bird behaves this way, means this way. That's a piece, that's a part of the message. So it was connecting with that intuitive energy, and watching John work with the colors allowed me to realize that there was a connection here. And it took a while for me to put everything together. When I do the art for my clients, I don't do it in the reading when I'm working with them. I'm usually working either with cards, generally with, or for like a life soul reading with their basic birth chart and the progressions and the information. And then I get the artwork afterwards. That's a part of the reading. If they do a life reading, is I'll sit down and I will sit down with the paints, much like John does. I try not to overthink it. I think, oh, this person, even if like the reading could be all about needing health and physical wellness, and I'm thinking we're going to go for a lot of green, and there'll be almost no green in the art. So it's having the paint out there and letting those paints, letting the colors, the angels, the energy speak to me and saying, this is what this person needs in the piece of art that I'm creating for them. And the thing that's really fascinating is when I create the discs, it's a point at which Gabriel says, put the brush down, walk away, leave it. I will come back the next day as it's drying, and things have appeared in the disc that I can tell people I worked really hard to put them there, but tiny little hearts, tiny little angel feathers. I'm like, people go, how'd you do that? And they go, well, years of training. But it's like magic. I've even had little things appear that look almost like light language, like little lines of something that appear that almost look like light. So it was just stepping back and letting the energy speak, let the angels speak, let the colors speak, and just surrendering to that process. And so connecting with John, it's been so inspiring in that sense of like we're touching with each other, and it's like, am I crazy, or like is this a thing? And we're like, no, it's a thing. Yeah.
So I want to rename this Intuitives in Neutral, because it feels like all three of us are sort of going into this little neutral place in which to create solutions for people. And Deborah, your stuff is really truly in a way prescriptive, almost in a medical sense, because it's like you're literally like a doctor would, sitting down with somebody and saying, tell me where it hurts. And then you are creating the cure, in a way, the energetic support for the cure. But tell people what a disc even looks like. You're talking about the disc. That's what I have. I love mine. It's right by my desk. But tell them what one looks like. What is that? What is that? And how do they envision that?
Well,
and if you've got
I
one,
have to.
you can. If you've got one,
I don't have one right here in front of me because I'm at the. Oh, there we go. John's got one.
John,
thank you, buddy.
John's got you covered. So for those of you who
So
are
they're
watching
all,
this on YouTube, you can see the disc. But describe the disc to them.
So I have to give credit to our very dear friend Jem in Australia.
Ah, Jem.
Early on when I was working on things, and in our very, very first angel group that you and I connected in that very special
Mhm.
group, I made each person in that group, I did a series of angel meditations, which I shared with each person, and each person got a piece of art. Those were actual individual paintings. Some of them were a little bit bigger, some of them were smaller, but they were
Mhm.
like on canvases. And I do actually still do those. And occasionally that is what I get is an image of you need to paint this for someone. I did a painting of like a sapphire tower. It's like Archangel Michael's tower, and that's what they needed for them to go and sit and have this image of this tower. This is where you connect with Archangel Michael. But the energy discs are something that came. I was playing around with paints on canvas and how do I make it work? And Jem, our friend Jem, said, "I see you painting on wood. I just see you painting on like natural things like rocks and wood, right?" And I walked into a craft store one day and I saw these little round wooden discs. Like, when you cut off the bottom of a Christmas tree to make it fit in the
Yeah.
stand, there's just these
Right.
little round discs. And I'm like, oh, that would work. That's great. And it's very organic. So that's what I put the paints onto. And what happens is that for me, sometimes in John's the one that John has, it does have actual little feathers that I actually painted around the outside of it. Um, but for me, I like the idea that it's on these little pieces of wood because that's connected to the earth. That's an organic kind of thing. And to me, with my Japanese background and the connection to nature, the idea of having that connection of because I want the energy, even as it's opening people up, I want it also to help them ground to connect with themselves. Because the goal of what I'm doing is trying to help people get to that place where whatever I'm giving them from the reading and whatever they're getting from the art that they get afterwards is helping them to connect with some part of themselves that is trying to speak to them from their soul so that they can work through the obstacles, whether certain colors help them because the angels are helping them, whether those colors have certain personal meaning. And one person who got back to me and she said, when I first got the disc, I looked at it and I was like, oh, that's got one of my least favorite colors in it. And she goes, but I absolutely love this disc. And now it's not one of my least favorite colors anymore.
Mm.
And there was a reason for that, based on the nature of the color and the type of energy that it represents, because that was a representation of a part of herself that she was struggling to embrace. So to me, it's the idea of the organic nature of just letting this happen and having this disc so that um, people can use it to charge their crystals on. They can put cards on them. They can just have them, sitting there as inspiration. Um, I've had people come back and ask, could I make a disc for them? When I travel, I have guardian angel, specifically guardian angel discs that are in certain colors that specifically have like little white feathers on them for guardian angels. I will create those for people. But it's the idea of being able to connect with the energy that that disc is embodying. And that's not energy that's coming from me, it's energy that's coming through me because I will sit down when I do that kind of art. It's very different than when I'm messing around in the studio and just painting and working on. I have a project I'm working on now of a deck I'm trying to create. That's a very different type of studio time. When I
Mm.
sit down to create the art for someone, I create a sacred space. I sit down. Sometimes I'll put their chart, or if there were cards involved, I'll pull those cards and set them aside to take a look at them too, but it's letting the energy speak and say, what does this person need to have? And letting that energy flow sort of organically.
Okay. So let's talk for a second about how this artwork is continuing to develop. So, John, let's go back to you. So, you did something with your art, also circular, which is an interesting connection between the two of you. Deborah's doing color discs. You did discs of a different kind. Tell people about that.
Yeah, so 2024 for me was all about taking projects that I had been procrastinating and developing over time, but were kind of like on the back burner, and to just really like move them forward, whether they were perfect or not. I was just going to get out of my own way and produce. So I did make a tarot deck, and I converted a bunch of my paintings into a full tarot deck. So that presented a lot of challenges. I'm not gonna lie. Converting my like paint to a digital version that translates well in like mass production was a learning experience, but it was thrilling and exciting. And I definitely encourage anyone who has a creative project in their mind to like face it head on and to go for it. Just learning the process from start to finish was so thrilling.
Yeah. Yeah. He's going to be so annoyed with me because I'm not letting him get away with that either. Okay. So, first of all, John's cards are round. His tarot deck, they're circles. So, you went through the process of taking artwork that may have already existed. I'm presuming you didn't have 78 paintings just laying around. So, you also had to create paintings. So now you're not creating a piece of art for a person, you're creating a piece of art for 600-year-old spiritual energy. Okay. That's a different thing. So let's just start at the very beginning, a very fine place to start. You probably called your first card the Fool, did you?
Yes.
Okay, fine, no problem. So how did you create imagery for the Fool? What was the process? How did it go about? How did you go about it? What made it the energy of the Fool?
So the the first thing that I did was I journaled about each card, and the upright meaning and the reverse meaning. So I just wanted
Okay.
to connect to the energy of the card, kind of do some free writing and establish that connection. From there, I really just none of my existing paintings would work, so I just knew that I had to create something new, and that was totally totally fine and fun. And that's where I think I just kind of that was obviously the hardest part, of just taking my time. It took over a year of me just dabbling and creating paintings, looking at them, seeing if I thought it fit the card. Deborah was obviously instrumental. I earlier this year, I had created a prototype and I sent it out to some trusted friends. And Deborah was incredible. She's like, "This is the wrong painting." She was brutally honest and fantastic, because she was like, "You need to create something new, or swap this painting to another card." And that sloppy creative project or process was just so fun. And having Deborah take the time to help me through that was instrumental.
So you said you journaled what a card means upside right or reversed, but your cards are round. So how does one determine, because one presumes it isn't just turning out into people's hands upside right or upside down. So is it 45 degrees and it's been reversed? Is it 60 degrees? How did you decide that?
So it's interesting, when I was teaching my clients, I was telling them that the little pink dots on the top and the bottom indicate what's upright and what's reverse. So you can, if you make sure that those pink dots on the back are in line, then the words
I
are
gotcha.
always going to appear upright or in reverse. But I
Gotcha.
actually got pushback from my clients because they were like, "Oh, no, 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 no. Sometimes when it lands
Yeah.
sideways, there's
It
like
means
something
something.
to
It's
that."
round.
And I
Yeah.
was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, okay, I'm learning something new." So I think what's fun about the round cards is that you can, first of all, they're easy to shuffle, they're easy to fit in small hands, and second, there are just so many different ways, like the sideways cards, or if they come on an angle, you can interpret that in so many ways. And I didn't want to get bogged down in the traditional meaning of tarot. I really wanted the art to speak for itself. And so I encourage, there is a single word on the top and the bottom of each card, but I want clients to connect with the image and the color, and then from there kind of determine what it means to them.
So how are you teaching that though? I mean, how do you teach people to read Mothershead Rorschach? I mean, how does that work?
We're about to find that out because somebody has a class.
Well, yeah, so I do have the color your spirit.
Guys, I did not know that. That was just me being a neutral. Go ahead.
I do have the color your spirit Angel Party Tarot certification class that starts on January 19th. And to me, it's not I want to take a similar approach to you and Dougal. I don't want to define what colors mean or tell people how to interpret the art. Every time you look at it in every different reading, different colors pop out or different shapes emerge. So for me, it's about the community of the class and learning together and listening and developing a relationship with the deck, as opposed to me just lecturing and explaining what I think it means.
One of the things I think is really absolutely brilliant, like when I got the first test deck that John sent to me, and Buddy, I was very honored that you entrusted me with that, was to open these up and look at them and go, wow, this is incredible. No, wait, this is not this one. This should be the Page of Air, but we'll put that over here. But the way in which you look at these, because they are abstract, and so it's like pure energy, right? How people get caught up. I've heard you do this over and over again, Rad, in our like development circles with people working to read the cards, or people say, well, I keep pulling this card, what does this mean? And they get stuck on the word, or they get stuck on an image, or whatever, the thing with the swords or whatever it is. And it's the thing is that when you have something that is this energetically pure, I almost want to say, is you have to sort of really go with your gut reaction. You have to go with your instinctive reaction. It takes you out of the box, right? So you can say, oh, I pulled this card. Okay, this is the Ace of Swords. What does the Ace of Swords mean? But actually you just look at the card and it's like, what is this card? What is this image saying to you? And there are certain cards that I have pulled more often than others, as happens sometimes, and there'll be subtle differences in not radical differences. It's not like the Emperor is always going to have a particular type of energy. The Fool is always going to be about beginnings and the energy of starting something new. But there'll be something about it when I look at it that is different. And the similarity between that and, for example, the way the energy discs evolved, once I let go of the process of like not trying to make little tiny paintings on the wood, because that just, I'd make these little things and then they would dry and then it'd be all blobby and weird looking. But instead, just putting the paint down and putting the paint down where it's supposed to go.
Saying,
why are you doing this? I'm like, right. There I am, 10 years old, going, okay, I can't be an artist, like, or like when you try to make something out of paper mache and it just doesn't come out looking like the way you wanted it to, which was a project I did when I was in 5th grade. But it's that letting it, following the guidance, the energy that says, put this paint here, put this color here, put this color here. Now take the brush, do this, add a little bit of this, step back, let it breathe, let it become, right? And then the thing is that disc then, I've had people say, I swear I never noticed, I didn't realize that this color was in, I swear that this color just appeared. Or and I'm like, I don't know, I don't remember. The color is there, it's there. Or they're like, oh, the other day I was cleaning my desk and when I put it back, I put it in different, and now I see something different. When you have something that is that organic, then the connection and the energy that you get from it can keep evolving.
So
And that was the hardest part, I think, is the stepping back, and here you have the science of tarot. And then I immediately regretted doing a tarot deck, and I was like, oh, this would be so much easier if it was just an
it's an
oracle
oracle
deck.
card deck, yeah. Yeah.
But I literally had spreadsheets and then words, and like I was just like really bogged down in the process, and overthinking the paintings the second they were created, and having that time to step back, and having someone that I trust like Deborah to who hasn't been bogged down in all these spreadsheets and this like kind of the more operational side of the creative process. It was really pivotal in moving this forward and making it happen. So I thoroughly thank you, Deborah.
So
It was amazing. I just to talk about the creative process. So I have this like test deck. I go through it, I look at it, and I go, okay, I'm going to focus on the major arcana first, look at it. And I don't think there were that many changes in the major arcana. There were a couple. There were like one or two that were switched. And I'm texting John, okay, can you take the art easily from one card and put it on another? Because I know how much work it takes to create the new image. And I'm like, if there's going to be a bunch of changes, I don't want to be like, okay, you got to create like 25 new pieces of art. Oh my God, he's not going to want to do it. So getting this information, okay, well, this art, and sometimes it was looking at the image and go, no, this image needs to be in the deck, but where does it go? So, and then with the minor arcana, laying it out, and I'm like, all right, they told me find the aces, find the kings. It was like this whole really interesting intuitive process of just letting it happen, and then laying the cards out and going, okay, I've got the aces, I've got the king. It was a very interesting process. My it deepened my understanding of the tarot system itself, which is also why the deck I'm creating is going to be an oracle deck. So there's no way I'm putting myself through 70,
well,
78 incarnations
w-
of the Daruma. But it did
right.
that process just of that. And I think so, to go back to the thing about the art of spirituality, people who are listening, they're out there, okay, well, this is great, but I'm not an artist. But you are creative. We are constantly creating. So your life is a work of art, and if you approach life from that perspective of I am the creator of my life, I am the artist of my life. When I get up in the morning, what do I want to see? What do I want to experience? How do I want to feel? I remember the first time I went to a museum with my mom, and she's looking at this abstract painting. My mom is this very sweet little Japanese woman, and she's going, I don't understand. And what is it supposed to be? And I said, Mom, stand back here and just look at it. What is it when you look at it? How do you feel? And she goes, oh, okay. I think this person's very confused. And I just thought that was really funny. And it wasn't very chaotic. I don't remember which artist it was, but I thought that was very, that's mom. She's very very much. But and maybe they were expressing chaos and confusion. I don't even remember what the name of the painting was, but but it's that idea that we are that art is simply the process of expressing energy in some form or another, whether you're sculpting, whether you're painting, whether you're baking, whether you're making cards, whether you're writing, whether you're decorating your house, whether you're training your puppy. you know
Ugh.
it's all that, but there is we are constantly creating. So for me, it's the idea of finding the joy and the purpose in what finding the joy in what you're doing that gives your life a sense of purpose. When you find joy from something, whether it's what you're I used to belong to a creative group online. It was one of the first creative groups I joined, and one of the women that was in there makes these cookies that are just incredible. I do not know how she makes them. They're literally like little artwork. And not just one, but somebody wants like a nautical themed cookies for their wedding. She will create like 50 replicas of this little sailboat painting thing on the cookies or whatever. It's amazing how she does it. And I think to myself, it would drive me crazy trying to create that much detail. She loves it. It gives her joy. So it's this idea that like with John, with your process, when you were starting to feel overwhelmed, you're getting into this, I've got to get this out there, I've got to do this. But when I could step back and look at this and say, well, let's just play around with these and let's have some fun. And then it becomes an expression of that kind of energy too. The joy and the joy, the humor that there
Right.
is in divine language.
So I have a question for both of you. So in spirituality, there are multiple ways of getting intuitive information. So for those of you who are listening and don't know about these, there's 4 that are most often referenced. There's cognizance, which means to know. There's clairaudience, which means to hear. There is clairvoyance, which means to see, and there is clairsentience, which means to feel. And so here we are. We're talking about the art of spirituality today with 2 really amazing artists. And so one would think that this was a clairvoyant experience, and yet it sounds to me, as both of you are talking, that you are expressing this as a clairsentient experience, if not just for yourselves, but for the people who are receiving benefit from the work. Neither one of you is like, John is hesitant to tell people that, oh, you're seeing blue in the page of air because, or swords, page of swords, because blah. He's more like, well, but why does it feel this way? Or how do you feel about it? And Deborah's saying the same thing about her art discs. So how do you feel about that, John? Is it a clairsentient experience or is it a clairvoyant experience? Or what kind of experience is it?
Definitely clairsentience. I have a I have a hard time with those labels, to be honest, because my process is just so weird. And but yeah, I would say if I had to put a label on it, clairsentience. Until very recently, I refused to admit that I was a psychic or had any intuitive gifts, and I was really adamant that I was just clinical about how I interpreted the colors. So that's a new coming out as an intuitive is uncomfortable for me.
Mm.
But and I think that that's why I also have trouble with the labels.
Mm.
But yeah, definitely clairsentience.
Okay. What do you think, Deborah?
Well, it's interesting because very early on in the work that I was doing with you, when I was first taking classes and first connected with you, it was really clear to me that my clair was claircognizance. I just
Yeah.
knew.
Right.
And the difficulty is you know, but you don't know how you know.
Right.
But once I gave myself permission to know, I would start to have images in my head. But that's not the same thing as clairvoyance.
Right.
And it was when it was your boy Kyle was I actually got to see him speak it was 2 years ago. He happened to be he
Is
was
that
at this little
Tampa?
yoga studio. No,
Oh,
it was when
oh,
he had just done one of those events. I couldn't go to that, but then he was speaking at a little yoga studio in LA.
oh.
And I found out from Jennifer Love about it. And I'm like, I'm going to be in LA. I'm going to go see him speak. And it was this, and he talked about feeling the angels. He said everybody wants to see the angels, right? He said that what's more important is to feel them. And I went, oh, oh, wait a minute, because part of the claircognizance, when I know when how do I know that I know? I get a feeling, and they're connected. And so when I gave myself permission to allow the to develop the discernment between this is a little course in miracles. John and I both do that. The Is the feeling based in fear or is it based in love? What is the source of this feeling? When you feel something, it feels right. There's not doubt in it. There's just that sense of knowing, there's that sense of connection. So again, it's the same thing of working, with doing this type of work where now it's almost the clairsentience and the claircog are so connected, I can't separate.
Right. So you've been
But
listening.
the other thing is, I will say with clairvoyance, sometimes they give me images and I go, I'm not painting that. That's too difficult.
All right. So you guys are listening to the Radleigh Valentine Show on mindbodyspirit.fm or your favorite podcast, or maybe you're watching us on YouTube. Been so awesome to have these two here. I'm going to let them take another moment to explain what they've got going on. I know John's got a deck, and he's going to be teaching it, so we'll let him tell us about that or whatever he wants to tell us. Where can they find you, John, and what have you got going on?
So I would be honored if anyone goes to johnmothershead.com, and I actually created a promo code Radleigh, so code Radleigh, and that will get them their first angel party free. And once a month, I do live intuitive readings for anyone who wants to join me on Zoom. So if they want to do that for free, they can use code Radleigh and book one of those events.
Awesome sauce. But you also have a class coming up.
Right? Oh, I do have a class. That's also, everything's on johnmothershead.com, okay, right on the homepage, so you can't miss it.
All right. Okay. Deborah, what do you got going on?
So for anyone that's interested in connecting with me so that you can get a reading and your own personal energy art, you can go to hello@deborahrahalski.com. That's my website. You can find out all about me, about the readings that are available. So just email me at hello@deborahrahalski.com. Let me know that you saw me on Radleigh's podcast, and I will also send you a special code for your reading.
Okay. Spell Deborah Rahalski for people.
Sure. It's DeborahRahalski. Deborah Rahalski.
There you go.
One fun fact I just want to interject. Deborah and I have our own podcast that will be launching in February. So definitely tune in for that as well.
What's it going to be called? Do you know yet? Oh, no, they don't.
To be determined. To be determined.
If you're watching this, the look on John's face would have told you immediately they don't know yet.
Well, we did a test run of a couple episodes last year, and then maybe the year before. And then it was earlier, and then 2024 just happened for us as it did for everybody, and so we're okay. So but yeah, we're gonna bring it back. So
cool. Okay, guys, you've been listening to the Radleigh Valentine Show. We are doing a new series in January and February called The Next Wave. John Mothershead, Deborah Rahalski, these are two of the people there. The next wave, you should be riding that wave into your spiritual growth. I'll be excited to see you. You can find me at radleighvalentine.com. That's where you'll find all things Radleigh. In the meantime, always remember that angels love you and life is magic.